Hello, beautiful. And what I really want to know is, what is good in your life today? I'm Kia, and this is another episode of the Female Veterans Podcast. Today, I have Erin with me. She is quite impressive. She was a captain in the United States Army, and right now, she is the current reigning Miss North Carolina Universal. She's incredibly beautiful, if you could see her, and she is an absolutely lovely person. And since I've known her, I've seen her do incredible work helping female veterans, and she is just leading the way and making change, the changes that we need to see happening right now. So welcome, Erin. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That was quite the introduction. I'll try to keep up to that standard.
It would be easy for you. So my first question for you is, why did you join the military?
I joined the military because I wanted to help people. That's really it.
Wow. So many of us do, right? We just have that like spirit of service, wanting to give back to the communities or make changes in the world. And that's a lot of times that's why we join. Of course, I also joined for college money, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's a good reason. It's a good reason.
Yeah.
I just wanted a higher purpose and to help others. So.
Amazing. So tell me, what was boot camp like for you?
So I didn't have to go to boot camp because I was in ROTC. So we just did some summer trainings, and it was on a much shorter scale, and you're just learning to be a leader and also learning the basic soldier skills. So I don't have the PTSD from the drill sergeant hats like a lot of people do.
So is that like field training is what officers do, right?
So it's like a college class, and over your 4 years of college, and then we do FTXs during the semesters, and for two summers you go to training for a month.
Oh, wow. So ROTC is very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so did you feel like a regular college student, or did you feel different because you were in ROTC?
I felt for the most part like a regular college student, a little bit more or a lot more busy. And which is funny. I think I felt a little bit more mature, which I was not any more mature. But I was like, well, I'm learning how to be a soldier and how to be a leader. But really, for the most part, you have 1 day a week where you're in uniform and doing Army things. And for the most part, you're just a regular college kid.
Wow. That sounds pretty fun. I almost selected ROTC. I had the option to do that, and I chose to go in and enlist it. I think I told this story before on here, because, well, my recruiter really led me in that direction, number one. But number two, his big selling point was the time that I was going to owe to the government after I finished ROTC, how much time I was going to be obligated. And it was way more than for enlisted. And at 17, because I knew, I think in 10th grade, I was going to go to the military. Wow. So I took the ASVAB in like my junior year. You know, most people were taking the SATs.
Yeah.
And I scored well, and I had options, and I decided, wow, I think he said it was going to be 12 years all in with an active reserve. And I thought, oh my God, I at 17, I was like that. I'm going to be like an old lady. when I get out of the military, an old lady. No, I want to have some other experiences. I won't, I don't want to be under orders my whole 20s long. So that was my logic. Although I'm not sure if it was the smartest logic. back then. I should have had a little more guidance maybe. But no, I did enjoy being enlisted. It was cool. And I enjoyed getting out after 5 years with only 3 years in active reserve. So tell me, how long did you have to dedicate to the military after you finished college?
So I actually was ROTC non-scholarship. So I had an academic scholarship from the university, from the university. And then I would receive the stipend that other cadets had, but I was not on scholarship for ROTC. So when I started active duty, I only had a 3-year commitment.
Wow. I should have gotten a scholarship maybe.
And so so because my scholarship was paid for by the university, and then I only had 3 years, and I had already, as soon as I got in, I was earning my GI Bill, because it takes like 3 years to earn 100%. So as soon as I started active duty, I didn't have to pay anything back. I was already earning my GI Bill.
That is awesome. So
I lucked out. I really don't know how.
That's amazing.
I was like a nerd in high school. I did, well in my classes in high school. So
right on. Well, that's amazing. That worked out really nicely for you. So tell me then, after you finished with school and you got, did you go straight to active duty then after college was over?
So I commissioned and graduated from college in December of 2014. And I had a start date of BOLIC, which is Basic Officer Leadership Course for artillery, because I found out I was going to be an artillery officer. And it's basically like AIT. So it's the officer course, but it's only for artillery officers. And I had a start date of February of 2015. So it was really kind of perfect. I had 2 months off after I graduated college. I moved back home with my parents, didn't even have a job really. I worked some like gigs and worked out a lot and got ready and packed my stuff up for my drive to Oklahoma to start BOLIC.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's when you began your officer training.
Yeah.
Would that be okay, so that's kind of like more schooling. So after that was done, then you were active duty, like officially.
So I was active duty then, and a lieutenant already. But so it's like class with a bunch of lieutenants, and you're learning not how to be an Army officer, but you're learning how to be an artillery officer.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So tell me then.
In Oklahoma.
So tell me, what was active duty like for you?
So first of all, BOLIC was like a big surprise. Going into combat arms, I was thinking I was going to be in the field a lot. Well, no. Artillery is a lot of math because it's a manual gunnery. And so it was very much a big learning curve. Drinking from a fire hose, learning style, but math, not like normal, what you would think you'd be learning as, in the military. And so that was about 5 months. And then I went to airborne school because I was getting stationed. I had orders to Fort Bragg with airborne school, TDY en route. So went to airborne with my friends, with a few guys from my BOLIC class. And then we all showed up at Bragg, probably 8 months after I started active duty. So that first fall, and got thrown right into the 82nd, has a very high op tempo. And, it was just go, go, go all the time. I mean, I think I was at Bragg for like 2 weeks and had already jumped like 3 times because nothing is as important in the 82nd as airborne operations. And so like, as soon as you get there, you have to do your progression jumps so that you can be, like a good paratrooper.
Wow.
And I mean, it was
cool.
go, go, go right away. Yeah, being artillery in the 82nd was really fun. We went to the field a ton. We're shooting. It was really fun when we did the drop zone mission. So we would drop the cannon out of the airplane, and then the airplane would go back around, and then we would jump out after it, run to the cannon, to the platform, set it up on the drop zone, and then shoot like live rounds. So that was fun. I mean, it also like really, really sucks.
I was thinking that. I'm like, it sounds awesome, but also terrifying.
Oh,
when you're in the military, you just do. So it doesn't really matter. Like if you need to face fear, that's where you go, because you get those orders and you got to do it.
And that's why I wanted to go. I wanted to be airborne, because I am scared of heights. So I was like, and I wanted to jump a lot to just face that fear. So every single jump I volunteered for, because I was like, eventually these won't be so scary. That didn't really work out, but you did get to, you get like the muscle memory down and you just don't really think about it. But yeah, I mean, jumping can be miserable. You're sitting there rigged up with so much equipment on for hours, like 6, 8, 10 hours sitting there, like scrunched up, wearing a 30-pound parachute on your back. Then you have a reserve on your front, and then you have a rucksack hanging between your legs and your weapon strapped to you. And one time I had a jumping antenna strapped to me. Wow. So like you're carrying and I was little then, so I think I usually had as much weight strapped to me as I weighed.
Oh my gosh. Goodness.
Yeah. But at those points, I mean, it wasn't really like jumping out of the airplane. It was just falling.
Yeah. Like I
just take a step out the door and just fall straight down.
That's insane. So can you describe for me what it felt like the first time you jumped?
Yeah. So I was the first number one jumper in the door. And so the door's open, you're standing right there looking out. And I mean, it's wobbly. And so you're like balancing, trying not to fall out of the door. And something happened, and the bird had to swing around again. And so I was standing in the door for like a long time, like a couple of minutes, and you're way down without equipment. You're trying to balance. And it was getting to the point, it was like a couple minutes longer than normal. And I started getting really nervous. And I remembered my ROTC instructor was like, just stare out at the horizon. So I was like, all right, just stare out at the horizon. So I'm just staring at the sky. It is very beautiful, but then you get scared as soon as you look down. So I was just staring at the horizon. And then as soon as they say, green light, go, that training kicks over. It really is good training. Like it's very much muscle memory, and you just jump. And I say it kind of feels like when you get knocked over in a wave and you're tumbling and you don't really know like which way is up, which way is down, but you feel like air and pressure from all the sides. That's kind of like what it feels like when you jump out into the prop blast. And it's also, I think like the entire process, like when they say, all right, stand up and hook up in the bird before you jump, you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. All right. And then you jump out and you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then you look up and your canopy is open. You're like, okay, good. I'm good. My canopy's open. And then the ground's coming. You're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I have to land now. And then you land and you're like, all right, let me check all my arms, legs, back. Okay, I can move everything. Okay, I'm good to go.
Oh,
This is like a series of like panicking and then getting through it and then panicking again.
That is incredible. I know that there's a lot of jobs like that in the armed forces where you feel like you're panicking, then you're okay. Then you're panicking, and okay. And somehow we just get through it, right?
Yeah, they just do.
Mm-hmm. You don't have a choice, so you just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
That's amazing. It actually sounds both terrifying and super fun to me at the same time. So.
It's fun, and it feels good when you challenge yourself and when you push yourself and when you challenge your fears. So yes, I did enjoy it. I also hated it, but I did enjoy it.
So tell me, since you were an officer, I have a different perspective of the military because I was enlisted, and I had my officers that I worked with that I loved, especially in the pharmacy at Naval Hospital Great Lakes. If any of them are listening, love you guys. They were awesome. So how did your enlisted feel about you?
Well, we should have them on here sometime.
Do you think? Because you probably don't really know, but like from your perspective.
I think they liked me. So I was first female in the unit, in my company. And it took a little bit for them to get used to me. But I think they preferred me at least to, some of the male officers they'd ever had. I think I just kind of naturally have a little bit more motherly instinct, motherly nature than a guy, especially. And so I noticed that they kind of felt that as well. And they actually, after a while, instead of calling me ma'am, because I was only female, so they would just call me ma'am. They didn't have to call me like Lieutenant Scanlon because I was the only one. Instead of calling me ma'am, it eventually turned into mom.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Which I think some people are like, what? But I mean, I think that meant we had a good, like, a nurturing type relationship. But I noticed, like, sometimes they would just start telling me things that I don't think they would tell a male leader, like about their families and about their wives and their kids and stuff like that. I think the other perk that they really enjoyed is I was always feeding them. Every time we were doing training, every time I was like, do you guys have enough food? I'd bring donuts and energy drinks and all that crap. So, and then I mean, we'll see what you think, but I think that females are often better at thinking multiple steps ahead than just one or two. So I think that helped with a lot of the planning and stuff. But really, like, I don't think there was a big difference. I was just another junior officer to them. That I think the biggest difference was I cared about them as people, and it was a lot easier to see and feel that. And I think that just comes naturally for me and probably a lot of girls. But I really don't think it was that different. I mean, I still get dirty with them. After you've been in the field for a week, we all smell the same. I still cuss as much as they do. I still have the same dirty and dark humor that they do. Like, I don't think it was that different.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like it was an awesome experience. I mean, with the unit.
Yeah, it was. I loved my first couple of years.
So, how many years did you serve?
I did 5.
5. And you really loved your first couple of years. So what was the turning point for you?
So in my second job, I got, my first job, I was a fire direction officer for about 9 months. And then I got moved to be the fire support officer. And that's a really fun, awesome artillery job as well. But I really feel like I got shafted because I only got into that job. And like a couple of weeks later is when I was raped. And it just changed the entire course of my career. Like unintentionally, I guess. But it just was a horrible side effect of going through a trauma and then also filing the unrestricted reports.
Wow. So that's completely understandable. I mean,
yeah.
As soon as you get into a new role, you have something traumatic and life-changing happen. I mean, the person, it's like you could stick a pin in your life right there. So the person you were before that is just...
I died. The person I was before died on that night. And I think that's another part of trauma. It's like grieving the person you were before. And it was crazy. It was, I went out that night with one of my girlfriends in Fayetteville off Fort Bragg. And there was an event going on with a military nonprofit. They were like having an event, like a fundraiser or something like that. And the head of the nonprofit, the founder, I talked to him a little bit, and then at the end of the night, he invited my friend and I to the after party. And we were like, okay, I mean, we're together, we're having a pretty good time. Let's go with these strangers to this after party that we didn't know where it was, which in hindsight was like multiple red flags. But we were both drinking, we were both just hanging out all night together, and I didn't get to hang out with her that often, so we were just having a good time. And we actually took a cab with the perpetrator and his friend. So it was me and my friend and him and his friend. And we get to this warehouse in Fayetteville. And my friend and I got out of the cab and we were like, what? Like, where the hell are we? This isn't a party. This is like an alleyway with a warehouse in it. So we literally said to each other, we're not staying more than 20 minutes. And I ordered an Uber. And I told one of my friends, hey, change of plans. This is a bad situation. We're not staying here. We are going to come to your house. Ordered the Uber. It was such a weird place. It was literally a warehouse that these guys were using as a place to throw parties. And it was so much a warehouse. So while we were waiting for the Uber, I had to go to the bathroom. I have the smallest bladder in the whole world. I always have to go to the bathroom. So again, I had to go to the bathroom. So I asked the perpetrator where the bathroom was. And he's like, oh, there's no bathroom, but there's a porta potty outside on the side of the building. So I was like, oh my God, of course, like as if this place couldn't get any more sketchy. Mm-hmm. So I set my stuff down with my friend, go out the door and go into the porta potty. And when I opened it, the perpetrator had followed me outside and was right in front of me. And that's where he attacked me. I can talk about this over, but like that one part, I just can't really talk about.
No, that's okay. I mean, you have to be, it's completely fine. You have to be completely comfortable. Whatever you feel is appropriate to share is enough. Believe me, there are so many females out there that share this experience and they're not ready to talk about it. So they listen to this podcast and they feel less alone. So I appreciate any information you're sharing in order to help other female veterans on their healing journey as well.
Yeah. So it was very it's like what you would imagine out of like a horror movie. I mean, I was followed into a dark alley and he raped me on top of a junkyard car, in a car junkyard on top of one of the cars.
Oh, honey.
And I say this because, like, as you'll see, the whole rest of my life, I will have to be defending myself, saying, no, I didn't want that to happen, which blows my mind because it's like, who would want that to happen? That's
nobody.
How could anyone think that is, you know, I don't understand why as victims we have to defend ourselves. But
I mean, don't get me started on victim shaming because I have a huge problem with that. Like a huge problem with that. And in fact, with everything going on in the media and the news right now, I'm seeing a lot of that. Actually, one of my supporters sent me an image of someone publicly victim shaming someone, and she tagged me. I
think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so I was like, oh my God. So you saw it.
Yeah.
I like my blood. It just boils over. How can you ever think that a woman wants that? I don't care what she's wearing. I don't care where she goes. I don't care if she was drinking. I don't care any of the circumstances. No woman wants to be violated like that anywhere. I don't care if it was in, a beautiful hotel with golden sheets. No woman wants to have that taken from her anywhere at any time. And to try to make her feel bad, like she did something wrong or earned it in some way or deserved it in some way, just makes me like so angry. I just can't even, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very much just after I just had to get out of there. And so I ran to my phone. I had missed calls from my friend and from the Uber driver. And we're just trying to get out of there. And the perpetrator came up and he's like, oh, you called it Uber? He's not going to be able to find you here. And I was like, oh my God, this was so planned. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I was like, well, I was fucking explain how to get here because I am leaving. And my friend was just kind of like, what in the heck? And I just started walking out of the building, out of the warehouse, and walked down the alley to where the road was that we came in. And we saw a car that looked like an Uber, and I stopped them. And he's like, are you, I don't know, Stacy or whatever? And I was like, no, but I need an Uber. And he's like, well, you're not my Uber. And I was like, I don't care. And I got in the Uber, and I was like, you can cancel that one, and I will order you right now. You are driving away. Just drive away right now. So he actually, I had just met him that night, but he gave me his phone number. So he had my phone number and I had his phone number. And when I was like walking out of the building, he tried to come up to me again, and I like dodged away and just like walked to the road. And so he actually texted me, "How are you doing?"
Yeah, I mean,
and like, what? How do you think I'm doing? Also, why would you have to ask me that if it was consensual? Like, you could tell I was upset because you just raped me.
Like, he knew what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what he did. What really galls me of the whole thing, there's so many parts, but what really galls me of this part is that afterwards you leave, you go, and he comes up to you again. Like, he didn't even have the decency to be ashamed of himself. He was like a boy, comes up to you, "Oh, hey, sorry, Uber's not going to be able to find." Like, why are you talking to me? Number two, he texts you. He's going to text you.
And he had to text me because I wouldn't let him get near me again.
Why would he think he could? Did he have mental health issues? Why would he think he should ever go anywhere? And like, could you be like, my question is, could you be that sort of removed from reality that you would ever think that after you rape a woman, she wants to talk to you, be near you, or have any, like, business as usual? Like, let's go back to hanging out tonight. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I wonder, like, at what point in time he maybe was like starting to worry about if I was going to report or not. Because I clearly was like not just taking it. Like, I was fighting back already at that point. Yeah. So I get to my friend's house, and I actually texted one of my other friends who, like, I knew she had been in a similar situation at some point when she was young enlisted as well. She was like a veteran, but I knew she had been through something similar. And so I texted her and I said, I think I was raped last night. I don't remember exactly what I said. Like, but I was like, I don't know, like, the legal stuff, but like, I was taken advantage of last night. What do I do? And she's like, all right, I'm coming to pick you up and we're going to the hospital. I was like, okay, like, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's very much like a whirlwind. I think it was good. I didn't have a lot of time to think about what was happening. And that the first two friends, the friend that I was there with, and then the friend's house that we got to, they were both like appalled, and noticed and helped me realize like what had happened and how wrong it was. And so when my friend picked me up, I just went along, and she had already called the 24/7 hotline SARC for Fort Bragg. So a SARC, an active duty sexual assault response coordinator, met us at the hospital. And I remember she was out front waiting for us. I was in like baggy clothes with like looking like a mess, so embarrassed. And she was so nice. She's like, do you want to talk about what happened? And I was like, nope, let's just get this over with. I don't know what we're doing, but like, let's just get it over with. So I did the whole sexual assault forensic exam at the hospital, which is traumatizing in itself.
Yes.
I understand the need for it. And I'm glad I had a friend with me and the victim advocate. And I think I just was like, I knew like this is what we have to do. I think at that point I was still very much in shock and confused, but I was I've never like allowed someone to get the better of me or treat me any way less than, you know, a person should be treated. And I also know what's right and what's wrong. And if something happens that's wrong, like, you're supposed to report it. You're supposed to hold people accountable. So we did the exam, and that took a really long time. They like take pictures of your body. They look for injuries. They write up a whole report, and it's basically your body is the crime scene, and they're collecting evidence. So as horrible as it is, I was like, okay, this is what we have to do in order to hold this perpetrator accountable. So I got through that, and my friend took me home, and I just walked in the door and fell to the floor and started bawling. And it wasn't for a couple days later, so that was like a Saturday. The Monday I went into work, and I went to see that SARC from the weekend from the hospital. And I was like, I need to talk to a chaplain, but I'm ready to report, like to turn it into an unrestricted report. But I just needed to talk to a chaplain first. And he was great. He told me what I needed to hear, I think. I don't know how he knew what I needed to hear, but he did. And he was like, I'm so sorry. This person is a predator, but you're a leader, and you joined the Army because you wanted to lead people, and you have to hold him accountable because otherwise he's going to keep doing it. And I was like, yep, I got it. I think I needed that like higher purpose. You know, this is why it happened to me. I have to report him. So the SARC takes me to CID. We file the initial report, and then so they collected like the basic information, what happened, where, and they had his phone number because I had his phone number. So they were able to get his name that way. And then they actually stopped me, and they sent me away, and they said, you have to go to Fayetteville Police Department because it happened in Fayetteville. We don't have jurisdiction, and we can't take this report. So sorry that you just spent 2 hours telling this traumatic story, but you have to go to Fayetteville and do it again.
Here we go.
This is where it gets good. So as I have learned now, that's not how they would have done it then. That was not how it was supposed to go. Because when they looked up his name, they saw that he was active duty. I did not know. I thought he was maybe a veteran, but I didn't know he was active duty, and no one bothered to tell me for like 3 weeks. And that was only the Fayetteville that told me. God. So I filed that was like by the end of the day, or by the time we got to the police station, it was the end of the day. They were like, the detective's gone for the day, come back in the morning. So came back in the morning, filed the report with Fayetteville. He asked me if I would take him to the site, to the warehouse location, and show him where it occurred. And I didn't even know because we took that cab. Yeah. So I had to pull up the Uber and find out where he picked me up from. And the detective drove myself and my friend to the warehouse. And that was one of the first times I had ever experienced a traumatic trigger. Like one of those makes no sense, how the thing you're seeing evoke this reaction out of you. But pulling up to that location, I completely broke down and was sobbing and pointing out like the weirdest random things that I remembered. And he kind of figured out like exactly where it happened. And I was like, all right, I got to get out of here. This is, and I was terrified because I was so scared that the perpetrator was going to see me with a detective and know that I reported. And I think one of his friends was there and tipped him off.
Oh my God.
So that was so terrifying. And that is when I got home from the police department after filing the report, that was when I realized I needed to tell my parents, because it's to be involved in a legal, like the witness of a felony crime. It's really scary. like that's some serious.
It's a big deal.
Right, yeah. Big deal. So I was like, I have to tell my parents. I was very fortunate. Like, my parents are amazing. They've been supportive of me and my siblings our whole lives. I knew it would never, it's not like they wouldn't support me now. I didn't want to hurt them, which I knew telling them would hurt them. So my friend helped me because I was like, I could barely talk. So she like dialed up my parents and helped explain what had happened. And she was able to tell them a little bit more rationally about like going to the hospital and going to the police station. That was a really hard conversation to hear my parents' reaction to that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But, and they were all the way back in Arizona too. So I was like, oh God, like I know I'm putting so much on them, but thank goodness, we had a great relationship and they've only ever been supportive. So, that's how all the legal stuff got started. About 3 weeks after the assault, the perpetrator was arrested and charged by Fayetteville Police Department with rape, sexual assault, and sexual battery. And that was crazy. That was really made it really real. It's just, obviously it's not something you ask for, and it's such a serious, traumatic thing, but it's so unfortunate that this trauma that you've been through now has to go through this whole legal thing, which is traumatic in itself.
Yes.
So, that's where my military career really got off track. I went from like being a very involved, good officer to like having appointments multiple times a day, having breakdowns in my office, having to go to the Stark's office all the time to cry. It's crazy how these little stressors become the end of the world when you're like in the midst of right after a trauma. You're just barely surviving. And so just the littlest thing. So like, for example, something I realized when you're coming onto a military installation, you have to show your BOD ID. Mm-hmm. And I was, every time before driving into work, I always had my ID ready. No one ever had to wait on me because I hate making people wait on me because I hate waiting on other people in their cars. So I always had my ID ready for the gate guard. Well, in those couple of months after the assault, I so many times got up to the gate guard and was like, oh my God, my wallet, where's my wallet? Got to get my ID out, scrambling to find my ID, because that entire drive, I was so fixated on these like overwhelming thoughts and not focused on just like the drive and then getting my ID out 5 minutes early so that I was ready to go in. And I was like, I literally can't focus on anything else. How am I supposed to be a leader? How am I supposed to be a soldier? This is the only thing I'm thinking about, because it's like your survival instinct. Everything else goes out the window.
I can just imagine how you must have been feeling at that time. It's like what you said about not having your ID card ready. I was thinking that when a trauma happens to you, and it has such an emotional impact, it knocks you right out of the present. Like it knocks you right out of the present tense, and you begin to live your life in the past and in the future. So you become depressed and anxious because you're depressed, reliving the moments of the past, and you're anxious with the fear of what's going to happen in the next moment. So you're never in the present. Right. So how are you going to think to get your ID card out, because you're either in the past or the future in that moment. Right.
Because I mean, I have never been like that ever. Like I'm always planning 3 steps ahead, etc. And I noticed that it happened all the time. I was like, oh my God, I am so distracted. It was amazing. I mean, not in a good way.
I totally understand.
Yeah, that is where that's the point where, like I say, before I loved the Army and everything I did, to the rest of it was really just surviving with a few high points here and there. And the high points were literally my soldiers in my platoon that I worked with. And that was it. The whole rest of like my life for like 2 years, 3 years was a nightmare.
How did you make it to the end of your enlistment? Because I mean, oftentimes if the military doesn't discharge you for whatever reason they come up with, we sometimes can't make it through, and we need to get ourselves out.
Yeah. So, for officers, once you hit your obligation, you just stay in year to year to year until you drop your release from active duty packet. And then that means you have 6 months to a year left. So, I think I was only, I think we were just about, or the trial was happening like the year I had hit my 3 years. So, I mean, that's how long it took. So, yeah. So I was just staying in for that. And I really thought that once I got past that, things would get better and go back to normal, which no way. But, so about a little over a year after the assault, probably 15 months after the assault, the local police department, Fayetteville Police Department, and Cumberland County District Attorney's Office, who are the lawyers, they had set a trial date. We were going to trial because they had a good case. They had a lot of evidence. There's DNA. I mean, according to the detective, and the lawyers, they're like, everything's good. Like, we have a lot of evidence. So they set a trial date. So the week before the trial was scheduled, the military contacted me through my SVC, which is a Special Victims Council. And that's the Army, or maybe the DOD, I think it's a DOD program, implemented the Special Victims Council program a few years ago. And it's basically, you have the prosecution, you have the defense, and then you have the SVC. And the SVC represents the victim only. No one else, not the government, not the accused, the victim. So even though the case was going to trial in Cumberland County. On paper, I had a special victims counsel, and she was like, I'm here if you need anything, but, I won't really be that involved because it's being handled by the civilians. Well, the week before trial, she contacts me and says the military just found out about my case and just realized that the perpetrator was also a service member and wants to take the case back into their jurisdiction and try it as a court-martial.
Oh my God.
We literally had a meeting in Cumberland County at the DA's office, and it was the prosecution from the military, the trial counsel, the special victims prosecutor, and the Cumberland County district attorney to figure out what the jurisdiction was going to be. And I asked someone actually who has worked as a victim advocate in Fayetteville for like 12 years now. And I was like, so did that happen before my case or does it happen after? Is that normal or have they fixed that problem where Fort Bragg and the civilians get together to decide who's going to try a case? And she said, I had never seen it before yours, and I've never seen it since. So it was not a normal thing. They had never, ever done that before, and they've never done it since. So red flags. I mean, I had no red flags. At this point, I was just surviving. But yes, the military intervenes all of a sudden, magically, right before it's going to trial. They basically explain like the pros and cons to each jurisdiction, and I was just like, I am not taking part in this. I am not an attorney. I just want this to be over with. You figure it out. Whoever is best to handle this case, handle it. So Cumberland County signs the case over to Fort Bragg. So the legal part starts all over. The investigation is complete. They hand the investigative, all the evidence and all that stuff over. The legal part starts again. So now, when we should have been at trial, the way that the military system works is the perpetrator's command decides if they want to press charges or not. The JAG suggests or advises that these are the charges that we could charge based on evidence. And it was like the same as what the civilian police were doing. And then it goes to the perpetrator's command to decide if they're going to press charges or not. And then the perpetrator's command assigns the prosecution. And the perpetrator got like a Army appointed defense attorney, and then he also hired his own attorney. And they start the whole thing over, and they start scheduling a court-martial. So the court-martial was, so this was like February of 2018. The court-martial was scheduled for June of 2018. And I think the biggest red flag that I obviously was oblivious to, because my mental health was very much suffering at this point. But my SVC, my Army appointed attorney, told me that she was not going to be able to go to trial, and she's not going to be able to be my attorney at the trial because she was going on leave. Which I know because I now have all the paperwork for it, that when they initially scheduled the court-martial, everyone put in their dates that they couldn't do it, and her leave was not one of those dates.
Wait a minute. What?
Okay,
why would she?
You'll find out.
Oh, okay. Because I'm perplexed here, because this is sounding like a whole bunch of bullshit. happening, and the whole time you are not present because you're dealing with trauma, and this is just happening to you.
Yes. I had no idea a lot of this was going on. She just tells me she's going to be on leave. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, whatever. At this point, she had been my fourth SVC because they had rotated so many times. And I was like, whatever, what's a fifth? Just assign me a new attorney for the trial. So I get a new SVC for the trial. I met him the day before the trial starts because I was in the field and this had happened. They pushed it back to like right before the trial date. So I meet my SVC the day before trial, and the first day of trial is the jury selection, the opening statements, whatever, like administrative stuff. And then the second day really starts the trial to me. I mean, that first day, my supporters that were like my family and friends that were there to support me, I was so short and mean to them because I was so stressed out, to the point where like they wanted to go get lunch and we're on post in one of the shopettes or whatever they're called, getting lunch. And I'm in my ASUs because you have to be in ASUs for court martial. And I'm staring at everyone, looking over my shoulder, thinking all these people know that I turned in this member of the special operations unit. And all these people are looking at me as a traitor and as a target.
Oh my
like
God.
This is what's going on in my head. When I mean, they probably have no idea who I am, but
right.
That's just like the whole like paranoia. So second day of trial, I'm the first witness, and I was put on the stand. My testimony lasted like literally 8 hours. Like the entire first day was just me. And it starts with the prosecution, who's the government, who's like supposedly like kind of on your side. Like they're the ones that are prosecuting the rape charge. And they question you and let you explain like what happened. And then the defense gets up and my advocates and stuff and the lawyers prep me as best they could, but that is at least as traumatizing as the actual rape, because you're having to defend your actions when your action was being in the wrong place at the wrong time and being the victim of a crime.
I mean, really though. So this is why so many girls don't report. I mean, I was trying to hold this till the end, but you are so brave. Like what you went through and what you endured is what so many are afraid of. And justifiably so, because 8 hours on the stand, and then part of that, a large chunk of that, being torn apart and trying to be proven that you brought this on yourself when you're the one who was attacked. And the only thing you did was go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say also, when you said that you went to a warehouse and that these guys threw parties there. So I served in the 90s and warehouse parties were the thing. You know how many warehouse parties I went to without ever even a thought? I just want to let you know that without one thought in my mind about that this could potentially be unsafe. I was in Chicago, by the way, in industrial areas all over the place, going into like some of the worst neighborhoods because of a venue, in the middle of the night, and I never once thought for a minute that I wasn't safe. And I went a lot of times with guys that I served with who fortunately had my back, because I later, especially doing this podcast, realized that so many times I was in situations where something might have happened to me. You know what I mean? And I became very aware of that since doing the show. So for them to try to shame you or to make you out to be at fault in any way, it just makes me so angry.
Yeah. I mean, it was the entire time the defense attorney, when he would question me, he would start out by saying, "Isn't it true that," and then insert some made up thing that fit his defense. And so I do think, and my advocates told me, like, I did a really good job. I held my own. I mean, God, it took all I could to defend myself. I was the defendant. I was the defendant. Just trying to explain what happened. And one of the questions, one of his areas of defense, of their strategy of defense, was, it is burned into my memory, that the defense attorney put into exhibit my underwear and held it up in the middle of the courtroom. And that is when I lost it for the second time. But that was the worst. It was really bad. The judge immediately had to recess. My advocates rushed me into the waiting room and had to put ice packs on me. Thank goodness they were randomly in the freezer. They almost called 911 because it was like a panic attack, I guess. I don't really know. But my goodness.
Like a breakdown.
100%.
A breakdown. Barely. I would have, I'm just trying to imagine, I'm just trying to imagine myself in your shoes as you're telling your story. This is what I always do. And try to feel how I would feel if I were you. And as I'm envisioning them in my mind's eye, holding up your underwear, there's no possible way that you couldn't have a reaction. And then I'm thinking, how could every person in that courtroom watch you have that immediate natural response and not go, something happened here. Yeah. You can't fake that. Something happened here, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So the judge is ready to bring us back in. I had to go back in, get right back up on the stand. He continued where he left off, but he did not come, the defense attorney did not come right up to the stand again with the underwear in my face, because I don't think he was expecting that reaction, and I think he probably regretted it.
I hope so.
To be honest. But he wanted to continue on making his point.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, he holds him up in front of the jury. And at this point, the same, how is this happening to me, where my underwear is being shown off to other people to judge my character.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, nope, I can't get through this. I can get through this. And so I closed my eyes so I didn't have to see him and the underwear and the jury. And I'm closing my eyes again. I can't tell the story looking at anything. And just continued answering his questions. Isn't it true that, and just explaining how many, it was me, I sound like a broken record. I was like, I told you this is what happened. No matter how you try to spin it, that's not going to change what happened. And it's not going to change my answers. You're not going to trip me up like you're trying to do. So I just was literally like rocking back and forth with my eyes closed, answering these questions. And I was getting like frustrated with him. Like, how do you not understand? I have told you 16 times what happened. And he's just trying to trip me up, trying to get me to whatever. And the point that he was trying to make was that because my underwear wasn't ripped or stretched out, that it was obviously consensual. Like, oh, where's the logic in that? Because I was like, where is he going with this? Like, what is this? Yes, that's my underwear.
Really, that's where the defense rests, because the underwear wasn't ripped. You must acquit. Really, that's what we're doing.
Oh man, I have studied so many like cases now. I'm going to law school after this because of this.
Good for you, girl.
I will be a prosecutor.
Go get them all.
Yeah, that I will never forget that. And my advocate was like, "That was awesome. Like, you just kept telling him how it was, and you weren't even looking." But it's like, you're not gonna. How can you spin the truth? Like, you can't. So that was horrible, but I eventually got through it, the testimony. And when that was over, that was like the best night I had in a long time. My best friend was over to be with me and comfort me and whatnot. And I was literally walking around the house, sweeping and like basically like singing, like just so like, she's like, I have not, like, who are you? Like, I've not seen you like this in so long. And I was like, I just feel so much better. I did my part. I'm done. I did everything for myself. I stood up for myself, and no one can take that away from me. And now the rest of the trial is all on the lawyers. That is not my responsibility. I did my part. So, the trial went on for another couple of days, more witnesses. And then, one of the, so you're asking about the SVC, my Army appointed attorney.
Right.
This is where this comes in. Which, by the way, well, okay, so the judge ordered my Army appointed attorney, that girl who told me she was going to be on leave. She was a captain, JAG officer, that he ordered her to testify against me. Yes.
Wait a minute. What?
And I really can't explain much more because there's not anything else to explain. The defense attorney argued that because I told my SVC something, and then she told the prosecution, and then the prosecution turned it over to the defense, like discovery, like how it always goes, that pierced the veil of attorney-client privilege, and that she had to testify to everything I said behind closed doors, which wasn't even, so what he particularly wanted her to testify about was me telling her that I didn't want to talk to the defense attorney before the trial. That was like the revelation. And I was like, well, yeah, I told her that because she told me, she advised me as my attorney not to talk to the defense before the trial because she said they're just going to try to intimidate me. And I was like, okay, I'll just do what my attorney suggests. So
this is how it happens, right?
Apparently, yes. So apparently, the order was like already in motion from the judge, who, by the way, the judge for my court-martial was also the judge for Bo Bergdahl's deserter court-martial.
Wow.
If that makes you like, oh, okay, no wonder he made the victim's attorney testify against her.
Wow. I mean,
so the judge had this in motion, and my SVC's boss, essentially, what I believe happened is he told her, the judge is going to ask you to testify, so just go on leave so that doesn't have to happen. Well, the judge was having none of it, and they sent the U.S. Marshals to go get the SVC, my fourth SVC, off of leave and bring her back to Fort Bragg to testify against me at the court-martial. So that was one of the other red flags. I didn't know about most of this during the trial because I think my victim advocates knew if they told me they believed that it was like conspiring against me and ordering my attorney to testify against me, that it probably would have broken me and I wouldn't have got through the trial. But that's what happened. That was one of the like WTF moments of the trial. Another one was that and this happened when the Fayetteville was investigating as well. They asked the Army to speak with some witnesses who were at the warehouse. And the Army said, no, you're not speaking to these guys because of where they worked. And then again, when the Army had the case, the prosecution also asked to speak with, or also wanted to speak with those witnesses. And again, the Army said no. When to get around that, they could have just made it a classified trial, which happens a lot with military. If there's some classified risk of classified information or something like that. And they just didn't do that. They just said, no, you're not talking to these witnesses from the party. And so that was essentially how I believe I did all the right things, followed all the steps that the Army and the military tells you to do, and had absolutely no chance from the beginning.
That is such a powerful statement. And as I'm listening to your story, I'm sitting here thinking, it is beginning to sound like the Army itself, I mean, I'm just going to say it, didn't want this to go in your favor. They didn't want this perpetrator to be convicted, maybe because of his job or his rank or what he did for the military. But it's beginning to sound like, to me, I don't know if the people listening to this episode got the same feeling, but I have that feeling. And especially in light of everything that we've all known have been going on is one of the reasons why I started this podcast to begin with. But now, due to recent events, it's more apparent that change needs to occur because you can't just treat women like this. You can't just allow anything to happen to us, on or off a military installation by one of our own that we're supposed to be able to trust and then go, oh, this happened. It's embarrassing. We're just going to keep it a secret. It's like a child abuse family, right? And the kids have to keep it a secret because the parents don't want to, anyone to know what the horrible things that are going on in the house, right? But horrible things are going on in the house.
Right. And I did everything I was supposed to do. I put my entire trust in the system, and I didn't relent. And it felt like the whole process was like a courtesy, not a justice seeking mission. It was, all right, we have to do this because unfortunately there was enough evidence, so we have to do a trial. Wow. But obviously we don't actually care if the victim gets any justice. And I do feel like what you said with those natural reactions that I had, like when I was testifying for 8 hours, and what my family said too, they were like, there's not a single person in that courtroom who didn't believe you. There's no way they couldn't have believed what you were saying. But the thing that I believe is, it's not that the military doesn't believe you. It's that they don't care about your trauma more than they care about the perpetrator's career and contributions to the military. They don't care about your trauma enough to actually hold the perpetrator accountable.
This is the saddest thing, like amongst the saddest things in the world to me, because we go into the military just expecting what's right. You know what I mean? Right. You go in idealistic. I like to say I was really idealistic when I was very idealistic. Right? We're young. You think the world, there's evils that exist, but you don't expect them to happen to you. And when they do happen to you, you expect justice, right? Because that's what you think is going to happen. Never in your wildest dreams do you think, okay, and I mean, you're incredible, Erin. You already know I think that you just were like, you know what? No, I am going to stand up for myself. I am not, like, this happened to me, but I am not going to just take that this happened to me. And even though you very, like, understandably went through your trauma and came undone and had to try to put yourself back together and go through this whole process and relive it over and over, trauma after trauma after trauma around this incident, like, you still fought and you still went through all of that to get justice and believed you would get it and then didn't,
Yeah, so spoiler alert, the perpetrator was acquitted. He was found not guilty of anything. I think everyone kind of knew where that was going. But I got through that by, like you said, knowing I stood up for myself all the way until the very end and past the end, really. And no one can ever take that away from me, no matter what the verdict is. And, if he had been convicted, I might have believed that the system was just, and I would have stopped there. And then I wouldn't be doing all of this advocacy work.
You're obviously a veteran now, and you had to transition out of the military. So after all of this happened to you, how was it that it came about that you ended up getting out of the military after the trial, after he was acquitted and everything?
So after he was acquitted, it only took like 2 or 3 months, and I realized I needed to get out of the Army. I ended up getting recommended for med board because of the behavioral health struggles. But even before that, I had already started working with, had already found my attorney and started working with her, because as soon as she heard, especially my case where I reported, how can you hold it against me? I reported everything. And then you ordered my Army appointed attorney to testify against me in the trial. And so she, after hearing that, she was all 100% on board. And that's where the victim advocacy work went from me, because it started with me advising a few military officers, the 18th Airborne Corps commander one-on-one, the Force Com commander one-on-one, the law enforcement. I was kind of like a victim advisor, but especially with the military, it really just felt like lip service. And even the few officers that I spoke with, like 3, 4-star generals, who it did feel like they cared, but then still nothing changed. So my advocacy work went from small victim advocacy to working on a new legislation that will help everyone in the military. Yeah. So I do feel like this work that I do is my way of healing, and I just always just wanted to help people. So I'm like, okay, this is what I joined the military to do. So unfortunately, it was like a trauma that got me to that situation. But here I am able to help others again. And I'm actually at the point, for the most part, where I'm grateful that it did happen, because I believe I'm a much better person now than before, and have the opportunity to help and affect and save so many past, present, and future service members, which is all I care about. Even when I was just a lieutenant, like, the people were always my first priority. So it's nice to be able to do that again, to help service members. And it feels good. Finally, I finally feel like I know like what I'm supposed to do and why this happened.
That's really beautiful. And I definitely feel that very deeply, because it's why I do what I do, and to try to help the other females who go through whatever they experience in the military, good or bad, to shed light on the fact that some people have really great experiences and that's awesome, but a lot of people don't, and everybody deserves to be able to share their story. And the people who don't, maybe they're not ready to talk about it, but if they hear someone else went through it, it can help them heal in some way. And people who can come on here and maybe for the first time tell their story in public, it helps them heal in some way. And so for me, this is my way of giving back, is to share these stories and to help people and inspire them. I mean, who knows, maybe someone out there, God forbid, has gone through something similar than what happened to you, and they're about to go through that court process and have no idea, and you sharing your story and going into such amazing, candid detail about your experience might help them. It could even potentially save a life. So with that, you never know. I mean, they say there's, air quotes, 20 veteran suicides a day, but we know that there's way more than that, right? And you never know what a woman or a male veteran is going through at any given moment, how they're processing their trauma. And who knows? I don't know. But it's possible. And I've heard very many times that being able to hear other people's stories and share your story can help. So you just never know who's out there where your story might be their survival guide, right?
So last summer I had the opportunity to lead the restoration and like the indoor interior design and restoration of the local rape crisis center nonprofit who literally saved my life. So I went from like being the victim at the court martial to a year later leading that. And I mean, I was like put in charge, and it was amazing. And and I even put some of my own art and, redid some furniture and stuff. And in one of the rooms, the director wanted to put a sign up, and she's like, what should we put on this sign? And I told her, I've been in your shoes, and soon you'll be in mine. And she was like, oh my God, I love that. And I was like, right? Because when I first started coming to Rape Crisis, if you had told me that a victim who went through this whole process, reported, went to trial, got no justice, and had been on the verge of being committed, then a year later planned all this and designed all this and did all this, I would have been like, there's no way. Let me meet this person, because this person doesn't exist. But I did. And I just wanted others to see that there's hope. And like, I promise you, I was in that dark, deep down place and never thought I would be out of it.
Well, you are absolutely amazing. Your story is just wow. And the way you are so vulnerable and so open in telling it is just so admirable. And I really appreciate you and the work you're doing for survivors, and to change the way the military handles these things and the legislation that you've been working on, and to make positive change. And it's exactly what we need right now, I think, more than ever, because no one should have to experience it, right? And we need to make changes so that women who are serving are safe to serve, right? Yeah. And protected, and can get justice when justice is due.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you for letting me share my story.
Of course. And so I know we've gone a long time, and I really appreciate your time. But I just have two more questions for you before we wrap it up.
Okay.
So tell me, what advice would you give for our veteran sisters coming up behind you that they might be able to thrive in life?
Oh, I would say stick to what's true to you, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Because I stuck to what I needed to do, which was to stay on the righteous path and seek justice. And I needed help along the way, and I was not afraid to ask for it. And that is probably one of the only reasons I got through it. So please don't be afraid to ask for help. And you are more in company than you are alone.
It's so beautiful. Absolutely. Really, really good advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And like I always say, if we can help at least one person, then we've done our job. But I have a feeling you're going to help a lot of people, Erin.
Yes.
I have a strong feeling about that, and probably have helped quite a few already. So really amazing. And well, I know that you have a lot of things going on. So if anyone listening wants to follow along with your journey, where can we find you?
So my Instagram is at Hey Erin Scanlon. My Facebook is at MS North Carolina Universal. And then the Facebook page I have set up for survivors is at Faces of MST, or the Faces of Military Sexual Trauma. And it's the same on Instagram as well. And then if you're interested in the legal aspect and the legislative aspect, it's farahsdoctrine.com, and that's my attorney's website.
Excellent. Well, I want to say one more time, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
It has been an absolute pleasure to get to spend time with you again. Such a lovely person. And I want to wish you all the success, and let's keep in touch, of course, so that I can follow along with your journey and cheer you on as you succeed.
Thank you so much.
And with that, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next time.